Admiral Minsu's flagship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, followed by 300 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. The massive vessels spread out in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun as they prepared to demonstrate the overwhelming power of the Galactic Council. Sensor sweeps immediately began scanning the primitive human star system for any signs of resistance. The readings confirmed exactly what their intelligence reports had predicted. The humans had built a few basic defense platforms around their blue-green planet and stationed some small warships in orbital positions. Their largest vessels were chemical-powered rockets that moved slower than galactic civilian transports. The entire human defense network could be destroyed by a single squadron of modern starfighters. Admiral Minsu stood on the bridge of his command ship, reviewing the tactical displays with satisfaction. The old warrior had conquered dozens of worlds in his long career and had never encountered such primitive opposition. These humans were actually trying to defend their planet with weapons that were centuries behind galactic technology. It would be like fighting children who were throwing rocks at armored vehicles. The Vorthan fleet moved deeper into the solar system, passing the outer gas giants without detecting any significant threats. Long-range sensors showed human activity around the planet Jupiter, but it appeared to be nothing more than scientific research stations and mining operations. The aliens had no idea that something much more dangerous was hidden in the asteroid belt beyond their detection range. Communications Officer Tal-1 received multiple transmission attempts from the human homeworld. The primitive creatures were trying to negotiate or ask for more time to consider their surrender. Admiral Minsu laughed at their desperate attempts to delay the inevitable. Every species did this when faced with superior technology, but it never changed the final outcome. The human fleet began launching from Earth orbit as the alien armada approached the inner solar system. Admiral Taeyang led 50 of Earth's most advanced warships in what appeared to be humanity's desperate last stand. The vessels moved to intercept the alien fleet, even though everyone knew they were hopelessly outmatched by the superior technology. The human ships opened fire at maximum range using their primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy cannons. The projectiles and energy beams struck the alien shields and bounced off harmlessly like raindrops hitting a mountain. Meanwhile, the galactic vessels returned fire with plasma cannons that could melt through any material known to human science. The first human ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light as alien plasma tore through its hull like tissue paper. The vessel had been Earth's newest and most advanced dreadnought, but it lasted less than 10 seconds against modern galactic firepower. More ships followed as the aliens demonstrated the vast technological gap between the two civilizations. Admiral Minsu watched the destruction with growing disappointment. He had hoped these humans would provide more of a challenge, but they were even more primitive than his intelligence reports had suggested. Their weapons could not penetrate basic energy shields, and their ships moved so slowly that hitting them was almost too easy. The human fleet fought bravely but uselessly against impossible odds. Ship after ship was destroyed by single shots from alien plasma cannons, while human weapons had no effect at all on the advanced galactic vessels. Within 30 minutes, the entire Earth fleet had been eliminated without causing even minor damage to a single alien ship. The defense platforms around Earth began firing desperately as the alien fleet approached the planet. The orbital weapons stations launched everything they had, including nuclear missiles, chemical explosives, and basic laser weapons. The aliens found this display of primitive firepower amusing since they had abandoned such crude technology thousands of years ago. The galactic ships destroyed the defense platforms with casual ease using their secondary weapons while their main guns remained powered down. The humans were putting up a brave fight, but it was like watching primitive warriors attack a modern city with stone axes and wooden spears. The outcome had never been in doubt from the moment the fleet arrived. Admiral Minsu received a final transmission from the human leaders, asking for mercy and offering unconditional surrender. The alien commander considered the request for a moment, then rejected it completely. The Galactic Council had decided that Earth would serve as an example to other primitive worlds, and mercy would only encourage future resistance. The alien fleet moved into close orbit around Earth, preparing for the final assault that would end human civilization forever. The planet cities were already visible on the tactical displays, and targeting systems were calculating the most efficient way to destroy the major population centers. The invasion would be quick and decisive, with no survivors left to cause trouble, but Captain Bioram watched the destruction of the human fleet from her hidden position in the asteroid belt with cold determination burning in her eyes. The Titan remained completely invisible to alien sensors while its crew prepared for the most important battle in human history. The aliens thought they had seen everything Earth had to offer, but they were about to learn how wrong they could be. The Galactic fleet had positioned itself exactly where Earth's strategists had predicted. The aliens were confident and relaxed, believing they had already won a complete victory. Their formation was loose and their guards were down as they prepared to finish off the helpless planet below them. Navigation Officer Junho reported that the Titan was in perfect position for the surprise attack. All systems were ready and the crew was standing by for combat operations. The alien fleet was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming. Captain Bioram gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. The Titan began moving toward the alien fleet like a ghost in the darkness, preparing to reveal that humanity had been playing a much deeper game than anyone had imagined. The real battle was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Again, the aliens had made the fatal mistake of underestimating human determination and ingenuity. They were about to learn that Earth had been preparing for this day much longer than anyone realized, and that sometimes the prey becomes the predator when the moment is right. The Galactic fleet moved confidently toward Earth, believing they had already won the war. Their formation was loose and casual as ships spread out to begin the final bombardment of the human homeworld. Admiral Minsu was reviewing target lists for the major cities when his tactical display suddenly exploded with warning signals that made his blood freeze in his veins. The massive energy signature appeared out of nowhere as something enormous decloaked off the fleet's port flank. The Titan materialized from empty space like a nightmare, becoming real as 2 kilometers of advanced human engineering revealed itself to the shocked alien commanders. The ship's hull gleamed with barely contained power while its weapon ports glowed with the promise of destruction. Captain Bioram stood calmly on the Titan's bridge as her crew worked with deadly efficiency. The stealth systems had performed perfectly, and the alien fleet had been caught completely off guard. The element of surprise was everything in this battle, and the humans had achieved it beyond their wildest hopes. Admiral Minsu stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. The human vessel was impossible according to everything the Galactic Council knew about Earth's technology. The ship was larger than most alien battleships, and its energy readings were off the charts. Where had these primitive creatures obtained such advanced technology? The Titan's quantum targeting systems locked onto the alien flagship with perfect precision. Captain Bioram's voice cut through the bridge like a blade as she gave the order that would announce humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. The quantum torpedoes launched from the experimental ship's forward tubes and phased through space, time itself to bypass every known form of defensive technology. The torpedoes rematerialized inside Admiral Minsu's command ship and detonated with devastating effect. The alien flagship exploded in a brilliant ball of plasma as its fusion reactors overloaded and tore the massive vessel apart from within. The Vorthan commander and his entire staff were vaporized instantly as the pride of their fleet became an expanding cloud of superheated gas. The remaining alien ships turned to face this impossible threat as their captains screamed orders in confusion and panic. How had the humans hidden such an advanced vessel when their intelligence reports showed only primitive rocket technology? Where had these creatures learned to build weapons that could penetrate galactic shields and armor? Chief Engineer Dongyuk watched his displays with amazement as the Titan's revolutionary systems performed exactly as designed. The ship's hybrid armor was absorbing the incoming alien fire and converting the energy into power for its own weapons. The more the aliens shot at them, the stronger the Titan became. 36 alien warships concentrated their fire on the human vessel, creating a destructive barrage that should have vaporized any known ship in the galaxy. Plasma cannons, energy beams, and kinetic projectiles struck the Titan's hull with the combined force of a small star. But the experimental armor held firm, and the ship's power levels actually increased as it absorbed the attack. The Titan's return fire was beyond anything the aliens had ever experienced. The gravity manipulation weapons created artificial black holes that pulled enemy ships apart like toys in the hands of an angry child. Alien vessels that had terrorized dozens of worlds found themselves being stretched and twisted by forces they could not comprehend or resist. The experimental plasma cannons fired beams of pure energy that cut through alien hulls like hot knives through butter. Ships that had been considered invincible by their crews were sliced in half by weapons that operated on principles the Galactic Council had never imagined. The humans had somehow learned to harness the power of stars themselves. Weapons officer Sung Ho coordinated the devastating barrage with the precision of a master artist. Each shot was calculated to cause maximum damage, while the ship's quantum processors analyzed enemy weaknesses in real time. The Titan moved through the alien formation like a predator. Among helpless prey, the quantum torpedoes continued to phase through enemy shields and armor to detonate inside the alien ships. The weapons ignored every defensive system known to Galactic science and struck directly at the most vulnerable points of each vessel. Explosions bloomed throughout the enemy fleet as ship after ship was destroyed by technology that should not have existed. Admiral Minsu's replacement tried desperately to coordinate a response, but the human ship was moving too fast and hitting too hard. The Titan's quantum drive allowed it to change direction instantly and maintain perfect stability even during the most violent maneuvers. The massive battleship danced between alien formations like a fighter craft while delivering the firepower of an entire battle fleet. The alien fleet that had seemed invincible just minutes earlier was being systematically destroyed by a single human vessel. Ships that had conquered worlds and crushed civilizations found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by human determination and innovation. The technological superiority they had relied on for centuries was useless against weapons they had never imagined. Captain Boram watched her tactical display as alien ship after alien ship exploded under the Titan's relentless assault. The crew worked with calm efficiency as they wrote humanity's name in fire across the darkness of space. Every shot was perfect, and every maneuver was calculated to maximize the destruction of the enemy fleet. The surviving alien commanders tried to call for reinforcements, but their communications were being jammed by the Titan's electronic warfare systems. The human ship was not only destroying their vessels, but preventing them from warning the rest of the galaxy about this impossible threat. Earth had achieved total tactical surprise. Lieutenant Commander High One reported that enemy resistance was collapsing faster than their most optimistic projections. The alien fleet was in complete disarray, with ships fleeing in all directions, while others tried uselessly to coordinate attacks against the Titan. The humans had turned the tables completely and were now the hunters instead of the hunted. The artificial intelligence system calculated that the battle would be over within another hour at the current rate of destruction. The alien fleet was being eliminated with surgical precision, while the Titan suffered no significant damage. The experimental armor and shields were performing better than anyone had dared hope. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not the helpless primitive species they had believed. The Titan continued its deadly work as the alien fleet died around it. Soon there would be no witnesses left to tell the Galactic Council what had really happened in the human star system. Captain Boram allowed herself a small smile as she watched the last of the alien heavy cruisers explode in a brilliant flash of light. The humans had been underestimated, and that mistake would cost the galaxy dearly. Earth was no longer a primitive world waiting to be conquered, but a new power that would demand respect from every civilization among the stars. The massive space station floated in the dark void between the stars like a giant metal city. Inside its gleaming halls, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered for their monthly meeting. The Galactic Council controlled over 10,000 worlds, and their word was law across half the known universe. Today they had something special to discuss, and the mood in the great chamber was light and cheerful. Commander Deho of the Vorthan Empire sat in his floating chair reading reports on his holographic display. The blue-skinned alien had conquered dozens of worlds in his long career, and nothing surprised him anymore. But today he was actually smiling as he looked at the intelligence data from their latest discovery. A small blue planet called Earth had been found in the Outer Rim territories, and the primitive creatures living there were absolutely hilarious. The humans, as they called themselves, had only recently learned to fly in metal machines and were still using chemical rockets to barely reach their own moon. Their biggest cities were made of concrete and steel, while the rest of the galaxy had been building with advanced materials for thousands of years. Most amusing of all, they were still fighting wars with each other over resources and invisible lines on maps. Deho projected the images for everyone to see, and the entire council chamber erupted in laughter. The humans had built what they proudly called defense platforms around their planet. These were small metal structures with basic energy weapons that could barely scratch the paint on a modern starfighter. Their most advanced warship was something called a dreadnought that was smaller than most civilian transport vessels used by galactic citizens. Admiral Minsu leaned forward in his seat to get a better look at the tactical data. The old warrior had served in the Vorthan fleet for over 2 centuries and had seen many primitive species before. But these humans were special in their complete lack of understanding about real warfare. They were still using kinetic weapons that fired metal projectiles at slow speeds. Their energy shields were so weak that a child could break through them with a toy plasma gun. The humans had a population of 8 billion spread across multiple nations that spent most of their time arguing with each other instead of working together. Their military technology was at least 500 years behind the galactic standard. They used solid fuel rockets, nuclear fission, and weapons that relied on chemical explosions. Meanwhile, the Vorthan Empire commanded plasma cannons that could melt mountains, quantum drives that move faster than light, and shields that could deflect entire asteroid belts. A female council member from the Zephyrian Collective stood up and activated her own holographic display. The tall, graceful alien had skin that shimmered like liquid silver and eyes that glowed with inner light. She had been studying the human communication networks and found their behavior patterns fascinating in their simplicity. The humans VROADCAST entertainment programs where they imagine meeting alien civilizations. In these fictional stories, they always portrayed themselves as brave heroes who could somehow defeat advanced alien technology through courage and determination. The council members laughed even harder when they saw clips of human movies where primitive aircraft and ground vehicles somehow won battles against superior alien forces. One particularly funny human story showed their soldiers using nuclear weapons against alien invaders. The council found this hilarious because nuclear fission was such an ancient technology that most species had abandoned it thousands of years ago. The Zephyrians had energy weapons that could slice through mountains and create artificial stars. The Nexari controlled gravity itself as a weapon and could crush entire fleets by creating localized black holes. Even the peaceful Altarians, who rarely engaged in warfare, had defensive technologies that made human weapons look like stone axes and wooden clubs. Their cities were protected by energy barriers that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. A human nuclear weapon would simply phase through their shields without causing any damage at all. The council decided that Earth would make an excellent example for the rest of the galaxy. They would broadcast the invasion across all known worlds to show other primitive civilizations what happened when they refused to join the Galactic Order. The humans would be given one chance to surrender peacefully, and when they inevitably refused, the council would demonstrate their overwhelming power with a swift and decisive victory. Commander Deho was already planning the invasion strategy. A single patrol squadron would be more than enough to conquer the entire human homeworld. Their largest battle group contained over 300 ships, each one more advanced than anything the humans had ever dreamed of building. The invasion would be broadcast live across the galaxy as entertainment for civilized species. The humans would probably try to negotiate, or ask for more time to consider their options. Old primitive species did this when faced with superior technology. But the Council had learned that showing mercy to one species only encouraged others to resist. Earth would be conquered completely and its population would serve as workers in the galactic economy. Their primitive planet would be strip-mined for raw materials and their cities would be demolished to make room for proper galactic infrastructure. Admiral Minsu stood up and addressed the Council with confidence in his voice. The old warrior had fought in dozens of campaigns and never lost a single battle. His fleet had reduced entire star systems to rubble and conquered species that had been spacefaring for millennia. These humans with their chemical rockets and metal projectiles would not last an hour against his weakest battle group. The Council voted unanimously to proceed with the invasion. Within days, a massive fleet would depart for Earth and the humans would learn what it meant to challenge the galactic order. The primitive species would have one chance to surrender and join civilization as servants. If they refused, they would be destroyed as an example to others. As the meeting ended, the Council members continued laughing and making jokes about human technology. They shared stories of other primitive species they had conquered and discussed how long it would take to completely pacify Earth. Most estimated that active resistance would end within a few hours of the first attack. The great chamber slowly emptied as the alien leaders returned to their ships and homeworlds. None of them had any doubt about the outcome of the coming invasion. The humans were so primitive and divided that conquering them would be like adults taking candy from children. The galaxy would soon have one more servant species and one less potential threat to worry about, but deep in the Outer Rim territories the humans were not as helpless as they appeared. Secret projects had been running for years, and Earth had been preparing for this day much longer than anyone realized. The galactic powers were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you underestimate. Captain Bioram stood on the bridge of the Titan-class battleship, watching as her crew prepared for what would either be humanity's greatest victory or its final defeat. The massive vessel hung motionless in the shadow of a huge asteroid far beyond Jupiter's orbit where no alien sensor could detect its presence. Every system on the ship hummed with barely contained power as 2 kilometers of advanced human engineering waited for the moment to strike. The bridge was unlike anything that had ever been built before. Instead of the cramped control rooms found on traditional warships, the Titan's command center was a spacious circular chamber with holographic displays that showed every detail of the surrounding space. The walls were lined with quantum processors that could analyze millions of battle scenarios simultaneously, while the crew worked at stations that responded to thought as much as touch. Engineer Dong Hyuk monitored the ship's incredible power systems from his position in the engineering section deep within the vessel's armored core. The fusion reactors were running at optimal efficiency, generating more energy than most planets used in an entire year. All weapon systems were charged and ready, while the experimental quantum drive stood prepared to move the massive ship faster than anything the aliens had ever encountered. The Titan's hull was made from a revolutionary hybrid material that combined human metallurgy with alien science in ways that even the galactic powers had never attempted. The armor could absorb plasma fire and kinetic impacts, then redirect that energy back through the ship's weapon systems. Theoretical calculations suggested the Titan would actually become more powerful as enemies fired at it, but the system had never been tested in real combat. Lieutenant Commander Hai-1 worked at the tactical station, coordinating the ship's devastating weapon systems. The experimental plasma cannons used controlled fusion reactions to create energy beams that could slice through any known material. The gravity manipulation devices could create artificial black holes that would tear enemy ships apart from the inside. Most terrifying of all were the quantum torpedoes that could phase through normal matter and detonate inside enemy vessels. The ship's artificial intelligence system had been developed by Dr. Kyung-suk using quantum computing principles that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. Unlike traditional computers that processed information in sequence, the AI could examine every possible outcome of a battle simultaneously. The system had been studying alien tactics for years and had developed counter-strategies for every known weapon and formation. Captain BOREM activated the ship's advanced stealth systems and watched as the Titan disappeared from all sensors. The cloaking technology bent light and energy around the massive hull, making it completely invisible to any detection method the aliens might use. The ship could move through space like a ghost, striking without warning, then vanishing again before enemies could respond. The crew worked with quiet efficiency as they prepared for humanity's most important battle. These men and women had trained for this moment for over a decade, but none had ever imagined they would actually face an alien invasion. Every officer and technician on the Titan represented the best that Earth had to offer, and they all understood that 8 billion lives depended on their success. Navigation Officer Jinho plotted the ship's course through the asteroid belt toward the inner solar system. The Titan would position itself near Mars' orbit and wait for the alien fleet to engage Earth's conventional defenses. The aliens would think they were facing a helpless planet with primitive weapons, while the real threat remained hidden and ready to strike. The quantum drive systems were unlike anything that had ever been built by human hands. The engines could manipulate space and time itself, allowing the massive battleship to accelerate instantly in any direction. The ship could stop on a credit card, change direction faster than thought, and maintain perfect stability even during the most violent maneuvers. Weapons Officer Sungho ran final checks on the Titan's experimental armaments. The plasma cannons were charged to full power and ready to fire. The gravity manipulation systems were calibrated and standing by. The quantum torpedo tubes were loaded with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Every weapon on the ship represented years of research and development by Earth's finest scientific minds. The ship's defensive systems were equally impressive. Energy shields surrounded the Titan in multiple layers, each one capable of deflecting attacks that would vaporize conventional vessels. The hybrid hull armor could absorb tremendous amounts of damage, while the ship's quantum processors calculated the most effective response to any threat. Captain BOREM reviewed the tactical situation one more time. The alien fleet was approaching the outer solar system and would reach Earth in less than 6 hours. The conventional human fleet would launch soon and engage the aliens in what appeared to be humanity's desperate last stand. The defense platforms would fire everything they had, while atmospheric fighters tried to reach the enemy ships. The aliens would destroy the human fleet easily and assume they had won a complete victory. They would move confidently toward Earth, expecting no further resistance. That would be the moment when the Titan revealed itself and showed the galaxy what human determination and ingenuity could accomplish when facing impossible odds. The Jin's voice came over the communication system from Earth Defense Command. The final preparations were complete, and the alien fleet had been detected entering the solar system. The conventional fleet was launching and the defense platforms were powering up. Everything was ready for the greatest gamble in human history. Captain BOREM took a deep breath and looked around at her crew. These brave men and women had volunteered for a mission that most people thought was suicide. They had trained for years on a ship that existed only in theory, and now they would discover if human science could match alien technology in actual combat. The Titan began moving through space like a silent predator stalking its prey. The massive battleship glided between asteroids and past ancient comets as it took position for the coming battle. Soon the galaxy would learn that Earth was not as helpless as it appeared, and that humanity had been preparing for this day much longer than anyone realized. The alien fleet would arrive expecting to face primitive weapons and frightened humans. Instead, they would encounter the Titan and discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who refuse to give up, no matter how impossible the odds might seem. The last alien warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light as the Titan's quantum torpedoes found their mark. Captain BOREM watched the tactical display as the final energy signature faded from her screens, leaving only the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The battle that was supposed to end human civilization had instead announced Earth's arrival as a major power among the stars. The silence on the bridge was broken only by the quiet hum of the ship's systems as the crew processed what they had just accomplished. In less than 3 hours, they had completely destroyed a galactic battle fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds. The Titan had proven that human innovation and determination could overcome any obstacle when properly applied to the problems of warfare. Tactical Officer Haiwan made the official report that everyone had been waiting to hear. All hostile contacts had been eliminated and the solar system was completely clear of enemy vessels. The alien fleet that had arrived to make an example of Earth had instead become an example of what happened when the galaxy underestimated human capabilities. The crew erupted in cheers and celebration. But Captain Bioram remained focused on the larger picture. This victory was just the beginning of a much longer and more dangerous conflict. The Galactic Council would not ignore the complete destruction of one of their major fleets, and they would respond with everything they had to eliminate this new threat. News of the victory spread across Earth faster than light itself as communication. Networks carried the impossible story to every corner of the planet. The species that had been facing extinction just hours earlier now celebrated the greatest military victory in human history. But the leaders at Earth Defense Command knew that the real work was just beginning. Dr. The Jinn stood in her laboratory, already working on plans for the next generation of human warships. The Titan had proven that human science could match and exceed alien technology, but one ship would not be enough to defend Earth against the full might of the galaxy. Construction facilities across the solar system would need to work around the clock to build more vessels like the Titan. The victory had been achieved through years of careful planning and preparation. Earth scientists had spent decades studying fragments of alien technology and developing ways to integrate them with human engineering principles. The result was a ship that combined the best of both civilizations in ways that neither had ever imagined possible. Admiral Jamnin addressed the United Earth Council from his command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The immediate threat had been eliminated, but the galaxy now knew that Earth possessed advanced military technology. The Galactic Council would mobilize their full resources to destroy humanity before it could spread beyond its home system. The alien survivors who had escaped the battle would carry word of the Titan back to their homeworlds. The galaxy would learn that the primitive humans had somehow built a warship that could single-handedly destroy entire fleets. The implications of this revelation would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Construction of additional Titan-class vessels began immediately using the resources and knowledge gained from the first ship. Earth's industrial capacity was expanded beyond all previous limits as entire asteroids were converted into shipyards and manufacturing facilities. The human species was preparing for a war that would determine the future of both Earth and the galaxy. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, faced the worst crisis in their long history. The species that had been loyal members for centuries now questioned whether the Council could protect them from these dangerous humans. Some worlds began seeking separate peace treaties with Earth, while others demanded that the Council use its full military might to eliminate the human threat. Captain Bioram piloted the Titan back toward Earth, where millions of people had gathered to celebrate humanity's first victory against an alien invasion. The ship that had been built in secret was now the most famous vessel in human history. But she knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict that would test human resolve to its limits. The galaxy had made the fatal mistake of underestimating human determination and ingenuity. They had laughed at Earth's primitive defenses and assumed that conquest would be easy. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that would not rest. Until humanity had secured its place among the stars, the age of human expansion had begun, and it would be written in the wreckage of those who had dared to threaten the home world. Earth would build more ships like the Titan and train more crews like Captain Bioram's. The galaxy would learn that humans were not a species to be trifled with. The Titan-class Battleship had changed everything with its first battle. The ship That had been humanity's greatest secret was now its greatest weapon in the coming war for galactic dominance. Earth would never again be vulnerable to alien invasion, and the galaxy would never again be the same. President Sujin addressed the world from the United Nations building as crowds celebrated in every major city. The human species had faced extinction and emerged victorious through courage, determination, and scientific innovation. The future was uncertain, but it belonged to humanity, and no alien power would ever again threaten Earth's freedom. The Galactic Council would send more fleets, and Earth would be ready for them. The Titan had proven that human technology could match anything the galaxy could deploy. Future battles would be fought on more equal terms, and humanity would never again face destruction while unarmed and unprepared. The wreckage of the alien fleet drifted through space as a monument to the dangers of underestimating human potential. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most primitive species could become the most dangerous when they refused to surrender. Earth was no longer a target for conquest, but a power to be feared and respected. The stars themselves would bear witness to humanity's rise as Earth's children spread across the galaxy. The age of alien dominance was ending, and the age of human expansion was beginning. The Titan had fired the first shots in a war that would reshape the galaxy and secure humanity's future among the stars. The message arrived at Earth Defense Command at exactly 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Admiral Jamin was sleeping in his quarters, deep beneath the ocean floor, when the emergency alarms started screaming throughout the underground facility. The sound echoed through miles of reinforced tunnels and bunkers that had been carved into the seafloor over the past 15 years. Jamin ran to the command center, still wearing his sleep clothes, as technicians and officers rushed to their stations. The massive holographic displays were already showing the incoming transmission from deep space. The alien message was being broadcast on every frequency humans had ever used, and the translation computers were working frantically to decode the meaning. The message was simple and terrifying. The Galactic Council had decided that Earth must surrender unconditionally within 72 hours or face complete annihilation. The alien fleet was already moving toward their solar system, and their advanced scouts had easily destroyed 2 human exploration vessels that tried to intercept them in the outer regions beyond Pluto. President Sujin received the emergency call while she was attending a late-night meeting about climate change in Seoul. Within minutes, she was on a secure transport heading for the hidden command center. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth would need to work together to face an external threat that made their previous conflicts seem like playground arguments. The United Earth Council had been formed in secret 20 years ago, when deep space telescopes first detected signs of alien civilizations. Most world leaders had been briefed about the possibility of contact, but none had believed it would happen so soon. The emergency session was called immediately, and representatives from every major nation began arriving at the command center through secret tunnels and hidden transport systems. General Haewon activated the main tactical display, and the room fell silent as everyone saw the true scope of the threat approaching Earth. The alien fleet consisted of over 300 ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Their smallest escort vessels were bigger than Earth's most powerful aircraft carriers, and their main battle cruisers were the size of small cities. The sensor data was devastating to review. The alien ships moved faster than light itself and could cross the entire solar system in a matter of hours. Their energy shields could deflect nuclear weapons like raindrops, and their plasma cannons could crack continents with single shots. Earth's defense platforms might delay them for a few minutes at most, and the atmospheric fighters would be destroyed before they could even reach the enemy ships. But Dr. Jin, the head of Earth's secret military research division, stepped forward with a calm expression on her face. She had been waiting for this moment for over a decade, and her team had been preparing for exactly this scenario. The small woman with graying hair had spent her entire career working on projects that most people thought were impossible. Dr. Jin activated a hidden holographic projector that rose from the floor of the command center. The device had been built into the structure 15 years ago and required her personal biometric codes to operate. The blueprint that appeared in the air above them showed a massive warship unlike anything the council members had ever seen. In their worst nightmares, the Titan-class battleship was enormous, measuring over 2 kilometers in length, and armed with experimental weapons that pushed the absolute boundaries of human engineering and physics. The ship had been under construction for 15 years, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Jupiter's orbit where no human had ever been before. Admiral J. Min studied the technical specifications with growing amazement and hope. The ship's hull was made from materials that had never been tested in actual combat, but theoretical models suggested they could absorb and redirect massive amounts of energy. The weapon systems included experimental plasma cannons that used controlled fusion reactions and something called quantum torpedoes that could phase through normal matter. The ship's power source was a series of fusion reactors that generated more energy than some small stars. The propulsion system used experimental quantum drives that could manipulate space and time itself to achieve incredible speeds and maneuverability. Most impressive of all, the ship carried an artificial intelligence system that could calculate millions of battle scenarios in real time. Chief Engineer Dongyuk had been working on the Titan project since its beginning and knew every system on the massive vessel. The ship represented the combined efforts of Earth's finest scientists and engineers, working in absolute secrecy for over a decade. Every major nation had contributed resources and personnel to the project without the general population ever knowing it existed. The Titan had been built using technologies that combined human innovation with reverse-engineered alien science, from crashed probes and debris that had been secretly recovered over the years. Earth scientists had spent decades studying fragments of alien technology and developing ways to integrate them with human engineering principles. President Sujin asked the question that everyone was thinking: could the ship actually work against real alien technology in actual combat conditions? Dr. The Jin admitted that the Titan had never been tested against live targets, but computer simulations suggested it had a real chance of success. The key advantage was that the aliens had no idea the ship existed and thought they knew everything about human military capabilities. Captain Bo Ram had been secretly training for this mission her entire military career. She had been selected for the Titan project when she was just a young officer and had spent the last 10 years learning every system on the experimental warship. Her crew consisted of Earth's finest pilots, engineers, and tactical officers, all sworn to absolute secrecy. The plan was simple but dangerous. The Titan would remain hidden until the alien fleet entered the solar system and engaged Earth's conventional defenses. The aliens would think they were facing a helpless planet with primitive weapons, while the real threat waited in the asteroid belt. When the moment was right, the Titan would decloak and strike with everything it had. The council members began coordinating Earth's defense preparations. Every military unit on the planet was placed on highest alert, and the defense platforms were charged to full power. The conventional fleet would launch and engage the aliens in what appeared to be humanity's desperate last stand. Meanwhile, the Titan would move into position and wait for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Time was running out, and the alien fleet was approaching faster than anyone had hoped. Earth had 72 hours to prepare for the most important battle in human history. The fate of 8 billion people would depend on a single experimental warship and a crew that had trained for a mission they hoped would never come.